Welcome to the Gaming Lodge, where we game till dawn. Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video on my YouTube channel. I'm Nicholas and we're back with another Dead by Daylight tier list. Around 1.5 months ago I uploaded a tier list video from the POV of a killer main talking about my favorite killers to play. And over the past few weeks, especially now with the Blood Moon event currently going on, I've actually been playing a lot of Survivor again, simply because to get into games quicker you get a lot of blood points, figure. And because of that, I'm now making the exact opposite of that tier list. So instead of talking about the killers that I love to play the most myself as a killer, how about we talk about my favorite killers to play against and my least favorite killers to play against as Survivor.
Let's go! Let's go!
So let's do that. We have overall 5 tiers, which should be very easy to explain. The top 5, the most fun to play against. When I see them playing against these killers, I'm usually happy, I'm excited, because it should usually be a very fun and enjoyable game. Then we have enjoyable to play against, so also pretty fun to go against, no issues whatsoever, look forward to that game. Sometimes fun, sometimes awful, a little bit similar to the tier I did for the other tier list, where it was like very dependent on a lot of things. These are the killers where sometimes you can have cool matches against them, but sometimes also not, whatever that depends on the killer itself, so the player behind it, or the map you're on, or whatnot. Then we have don't enjoy to play against, usually not a fan playing against this killer. When I see them I'm usually already like, I'm not looking forward to this one. And then we have the low 5, I might as well DC. Not looking forward to the game whatsoever. Have DC'd against these killers before because I just was not feeling playing against them at the moment whatsoever. I think that should all be self-explanatory, so let's get into it. I can already tell you that this tier list will actually look very negative at first, but it will become more positive later on. We're kicking things off with the Trapper, and he is a perfect example of sometimes fun, sometimes awful. Trapper is a very weak killer, so usually as Survivor you should have good chances against this killer because you can usually just hold W and you will have a good time surviving. But we all know how Trapper games go. Either it's completely boring, everybody survives within like 5-7 minutes and nothing happens, or one of your teammates gets trapped near the basement, they go into basement and they die early, or another teammate tries to save them and they then get also trapped and they also die in basement. You know, games with a Trapper can snowball very, very quickly. They can be super quick and boring, but they can also be kind of long and boring. You can just sometimes have good games against this killer, but sometimes they can also feel very awful and very, very weird and just not fun whatsoever for both sides, in my opinion. Because even when I play Trapper, these games where it's over in 5 minutes because everybody just gets into basement are often just not the best, you know, so sometimes fun, sometimes awful. Wraith, who was at the top of my list when it came to enjoying to play the most myself as a killer, is actually also in this tier. Yeah, above Trapper though. Because the thing is, I usually like going against stealth killers, and he's obviously a stealth killer, and chases against this killer are usually also pretty fun because it's just a little bit of a cool mechanic going into it with you have a little bit of time before he can hit you, and then, you know, it's just a typical M1 killer. The problem is, I feel like a lot of Wraith players tend to be assholes. Yeah? This is definitely also something that is worth a tier list, and honestly worth a video about for both survivors and killers. There are a lot of stereotypes when it comes to some characters, and for Wraiths I feel like a lot of people tend to be dicks. Yeah, I've run into so many idiotic Wraith players that just wanted to be super annoying and like toxic and whatnot. Yeah, just like for the Survivor side there's a lot of aces or Nancys that are exactly that. Yeah, I mean there's simply another thing, you know, stereotypes that you could do when it comes to characters. Wraith is one of them, so sometimes we can have a cool fun competitive match against a Wraith, but very often you just run into Wraith players that are really, really, yeah, annoying to go against. Next up is Billy, and Billy's an interesting case because I was debating about putting him here, but I will put him into this tier, and I'll tell you why. Playing Billy can be super fun, just because the entire chainsaw thing across the map is super cool, but playing against Billy can be very frustrating And this is something that you will see with other killers too, because I hate going against killers that can insta-down me. I hate it. It's super frustrating. It feels super, not necessarily unfair, because obviously hitting that chainsaw hit with ability isn't always easy, but like, it's just not fun very often. It just feels awful, you know? It just feels awful to get dropped instantly, you know? Just doesn't feel fun, and that's where Billy sadly has to go here. There are some cool games you can have with Billy, but majority of the time, and just the nature of the killer itself, I sadly have to put him down here. And next up is Nurse, and Nurse 100% belongs in the low 5. I've had games against new players that play Nurse or something where it's obviously super easy. Trust me, I've had the same thing happen to me on the killer side, where I play Nurse, I'm super bad on her, and it's a super bad experience. This hours I have a super easy time. Fun. But when you play against a good Nurse, a person with thousands of hours to lull you on this killer, or that knows how to play this killer, it's just not fair. It's genuinely unfair. Nurse is genuinely a huge problem when it comes to game design, because in a game with a lot of weak M1 killers, she should not exist. And there will be another killer we will talk about later with its exact same case. Nurse is on a level of design that is just not healthy for the game, and kind of drags down the balancing all around, because how many times have we had it where perks had to be like balanced around her, which then ultimately hurts the weaker killers that without those perks will struggle even more. Yeah, Nurse sucks to go against. Playing against a good Nurse feels super awful. It is often a challenging experience, yes, which can also be fun, but most of the time it's just another one of those feelings where it's like, what am I supposed to do? You know, and that feeling when you play Survivor is awful. When you feel like, what am I supposed to do? And that happens on both sides. I hate it. I hate it. Myers is next, and I have to put him here as well. Why? Because first of all, it's kind of boring most of the time. Again, I do like stealth killers, but like playing against Myers is like very, you know, one-dimensional when it comes to his gameplay, because he is the purest M1 killer in the game basically. But it's also once again the nature of insta-downing into a free. Yeah, like mentioned, just don't like playing against insta-downing, and obviously the entire nature of his add-ons where you can even be killed instantly. Yeah, and obviously that also feels super awful. So like the chances of having a enjoyable Myers game on either side are usually very low. I feel like, again, they've talked about wanting to rework this killer, which I really hope so, because the way it is right now is just, it's just not fun for both sides. On killer side, you either burst through like newer players and the game is over in 5 minutes, or you just get looped by people that know how to press W and run loops, and yeah, it's just not fun for both sides. And on survival, like mentioned, it's often too snowbally and too dependent, and yeah, most of the time it's just not enjoyable to go against. Hack is next, and I would put Hack into sometimes fun, sometimes awful. Now, Hack in general, I've talked about it also when it comes to playing her as a killer. You don't see her often. Yeah, there was a little bit of a resurgence recently when Hex builds were pretty good, which are obviously nice for her. But usually you don't really see her that often because her kit is a little bit, yeah, a little bit slow and not that well liked. It's just more fun killers to play. The thing is, sometimes I feel like you can have a cool time against her. There's the one add-on that like turns, or like that like doesn't give you notification about the traps or something, where you get like super jump scared. It feels a bit silly in that moment, but it's actually kind of super fun. But similarly to Trapper, you can also have a lot of camping people with this build, which makes sense. It's just unfortunately the nature of the killer, where also you get into basement and then yeah, it's just traps everywhere, and the game's like becomes super slow. I've played super long games against and as Hack, and that just, yeah, you know, but like, what are you supposed to do otherwise? It's super slow, you just don't have the movement speed to do those traditional chases most of the time. You need to play around those traps, and that just can often feel kinda meh. Sometimes you can have fun games against Nurse, against Hank. I've had them before as well, but like, you know, I'll leave her in that tier. Yeah, and it ain't getting better. Doctor, I would also put into Don't Enjoy, and I would put him right between Billy and Myers. Now, he obviously doesn't have the entire insta-down thingy, which is cool, but playing against this killer is just annoying. Just like playing this killer is annoying. Constantly having to worry about, you know, I'm not someone that's actually like affected by like the stuff going on screen, where some people actually have like health issues with. But something about playing against doctors it's just not fun. I don't know, it's just often super annoying from the even the theme music. Yeah, that's also the thing, like so much goes into the enjoyment of playing and playing against the killer, and sometimes even like the theme can have a positive or negative impact on that, and for Doctor it feels like everything just feels annoying. Everything about this killer feels annoying, from the visual enjoyment to the audio enjoyment. You're just playing against him in general. Nah, usually not having fun against killer whatsoever. And Huntress is next, and Huntress is another perfect case for this. Another perfect example. We had both Trevor and Huntress in this tier when we had the killer tier list as well, where it's sometimes fun, sometimes bad. Playing against Huntress is definitely something that requires skill, or like it's very simple on paper because it's just projectile gameplay, so one person has to aim, the other has to dodge, which makes for a very simple but still very cool gameplay loop most of the time. But similarly to Trapper, it depends on the player. Yeah, sometimes one of your teammates goes on the basement, and if that Huntress decides to camp, wow, not fun. Obviously, this applies to all killers. Yeah, it's just like a lot of things apply to all killers for the other tier list. It applies here as well. Obviously, if every killer tunnels or camps or whatever, or camps a basement, sure, it won't be as enjoyable to go against, but a killer like Huntress just enables that even further, or like has an easier time camping basement as example because of her kit. You know what I mean? And let's be honest, it also doesn't feel good to be like on another part of the map and you get like hit from a nuke. It's always a cool moment in some way, but you're like, really? And not forgetting to mention that the hitbox is awful, and you like, the hatchet is like going a meter next to you and it still hits you, and that's just another moment where like, you know. And that, like mentioned, can be sometimes awful, sometimes can be pretty fun gaming against Huntresses too, though. Like mentioned, I've had both happen to me, so I have to put her into this tier. And next up is Bubba, and as you could probably already guess, he also goes into this tier. Yeah, I like mentioned, don't like playing against killers that can insta-down you in their base kit. Obviously there will be some that have that as an add-on, but it's another story. I don't know, it's similarly to Wraith. Bubba players, or like Bubba attracts a lot of toxic players. The amount of toxic Bubbas you run into is insane. There's so many toxic Bubba players. I mean, the story alone of, I remember reading about it, where you could get like masks from the OG survivors that you can kill, and there were like Bubba players specifically wearing the Claudette one and specifically tunneling and camping people playing survivors, you know, that are like playing characters of color. It attracts a lot of very, very terrible people, and I feel like it's often portrayed in Bubba games. I've had some fun games against Bubbas as well, don't get me wrong, but like for the majority, and like based on the base kit of him with the instant down, I usually don't have a fun time against Bubba. Sadly not. And like mentioned, this looks super negative so far, very, very negative. But he's the first I enjoy playing against, even before the update already. Yeah, Freddy is a somewhat simpler killer, or like used to be somewhat simpler killer, but something about the entire Dreamwood aspect and the theme going on here with the, you know, Freddy, and the bit of stealth like mentioned going into it as well, was always okay. Yeah, it was like before that just fine, but I feel like with the new Freddy, who's like actually a bit more competitive to go against, super fun time most of the time. Yeah, honestly enjoyable to go against. Good job on that behavior. More fun to play, even more fun to play against. Well done. Next up is Pig, and I sadly have to say I also don't enjoy playing against Pig, because obviously you can have some fun little boop boop moments, right? You can have some cool players that play Pig, but similarly to Bubba, I feel like a lot of Pig players are often kind of mean and annoying, because Pig as a kit just often enables also big tunneling, and just generally the entire kit behind this killer is just super annoying to play as Survivor, with the traps and having to ignore objectives because you need to get the trap over your head, and they like mention when you just tunnel to you in that moment, what are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? Very rarely have I had some cool games against Pigs. Again, the stealth aspect I usually enjoy is also a bit weird here sometimes. I don't know. Pig. Not my vibe. I like Clown, who in my opinion is enjoyable to go against. I know some people that have issues going against Clown because of like the entire intoxication aspect that can actually, like, once again, similarly to Doctor, lead to some health issues. I thankfully don't have that, but I can totally understand why for some people it's down there. Honestly, usually fun time. Simple M1 killer, but like, once again, with a very simple kit behind it, that can make for an enjoyable experience on both sides. Cool to loop against. If a clown gets you with some cool bottle placement, you're also like, well done, you know, so good stuff here. Similarly to Spirit, okay, Spirit has some audio issues, which also makes her a bit unfortunate sometimes on the killer side, but all in all, Spirit is very fun to go against, because it's something very different. It's a very different kind of stealth with invisibility, that in my opinion makes for a super cool experience. And the way you play against Spirit is just not normal, it's just something unusual, and I feel like that's often a very, very big positive that I can give to specific killers. Yeah, making a different experience, like not just having a super boring game like against Mars, where it's just holding W basically. Against Spirit you have to play differently, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I think her kit is also like super fair on both sides. It's obviously strong and there's definitely a good amount of power to it, but it's not unfair. And I think that's a clicking moment. That's super, super dope. And next up is Legion. And for the longest, I actually had Legion down here in the low 5. Because playing against Legion is simply annoying. It's so boring. Legion is by no means strong whatsoever. Legion is not a strong killer. Legion is not a killer. They can like 4K every game or something like that, like a nurse or whatever. But playing against this killer is just boring. It's just not fun. It's just really not fun. It's just super lame. You just hold up. You don't have to heal the entire time, and I don't know, man. But there are killers that are worse to play against. Hence, I put it Legion at the bottom of the donut to play against tier. But like, it's just not fun. Playing Legion is boring as hell, and playing against Legion is even more boring. It's just meh. Super boring design, just no fun whatsoever. And talking about getting worse, I hate playing against Plague. I hate playing against Plague even more than Nurse, and I'll explain you why. The entire design behind her is, I like the killer design itself from like the visual standpoint is super cool, and I like the fact that her gameplay is different to other killers. Yeah, I think it's always unique is cool, but it's just not fun to play against whatsoever. It's super, once again, it's such a slow pace often, because you have to wait till the gen is no longer infected, or if you do want to go for it, then yeah, you become vulnerable super quickly, and then you basically also become like one-shotable. You can be instant down basically, depending on your infection status, and it just, man, it just sucks. Like, I know you can play well against Plague, and experienced players will have a good time against it, but like also, especially when you play solo, I feel like it's one of the skills that's another good aspect of how enjoyable can it be to play Survivor. How good are your solo teammates? You play with people on a Swift. Obviously, playing solo will always be more miserable than with friends that like understand what you're doing or like you're in comms with. But Plague, I've succeeded against Plagues before because I'm like, nah, I can't do this right now. Super long, boring games. It just feels awful to play against. Hitbox of the vomit is also super weird sometimes. I hate Plague. I'm sorry. Plague is just not fun to go against whatsoever. Super rarely have I played a Plague and I'm like, yeah, again please, that was cool. That was super enjoyable. Nah, exact opposite. Plague sucks. Unlike Ghostface. But here's the thing. Originally I had Ghostface in this tier, but unfortunately have to put him at the top of this tier. I'll explain you why. Usually playing against Ghostface is super fun because, again, the entire stealth aspect is one I usually enjoy, and I feel like Ghostface is the stealth killer to some degree. Obviously you have the entire instant down aspect here as well, which I mentioned a bit awful sometimes. Like, that's fine because it's just an M1 killer ultimately, right? My problem is, and that's why I put it into sometimes fun, sometimes awful, for some reason, to this day, the detection of Ghostface sucks. You can directly stare into a Ghostface soul, you can directly stare at them, and they won't be exposed, and then you get like the mark on you and you're like, dude, I looked at you. And you know, and another time when you play killer on the other hand, you barely even see a survivor, or like, you know, like you're super hidden behind anything, you can't see anything, and then they still detect you. You know what I mean? That just makes for some super awful moments where it's once again similarly to what we had earlier with Nurse as example, where it's like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, I literally look at you, I literally stare at him, and doesn't work, and then you get down and it sucks. Yeah, that's unfortunately sometimes what happens with Ghosty. Sometimes not though. Usually Ghost, like I mentioned, is super fun to play against, and I still have to put him into this tier. And drum roll please, the first top 5 member is here, Demogorgon. I love playing Demogorgon, and I love playing against Demogorgon. Why? Because in my opinion Demogorgon is one of the best designed killers in the game. First of all, Demogorgon players are usually super funny. Yeah, there's a lot of funny Demogorgon players. They're the exact opposite of stereotypes to like Wraiths or Bubbas. I've had a lot of good times with Demogorgons. But the kit is also very fun to play against. The entire portal aspect, you can either ignore them or you just remove them, that's totally fine. But like also chases with demos are super fun to play against. Because like his leap is like very playable on both sides, which is like very dodgeable to some degree, and beyond it's like an M1 killer, you know what I mean? But like one that actually has a bit more to offer than like Mars as example. So it's like usually a super fun and balanced experience for me as someone that doesn't play Survivor that often. Yeah, don't forget about that too. I am a killer main and play more killer than Survivor, and I don't have that many hours on Survivor. So yes, obviously if I play against a Nurse I will obviously struggle a bit more. So playing against a demo usually means pain. Even for a not as experienced Survivor player, I can have some good chases because the killer isn't that super strong. I've also gone down against demos in 10 seconds, obviously, right? Just like I've also sometimes do the Nurse for 2 minutes, you know, you can have always each of both words, you know. But usually playing against demo is super fun. It's a super fair, balanced experience in my opinion, which you just often can't say for others. Well, now we have the exact polar opposite. Next up is Oni, and I'm not sure how this is like usually. Yeah, I feel like for some killers you like Nurse as example, or like Teach there's an agreement usually. Yeah, I hate going against that. I'm not sure how it is for Oni, but Oni is in my low 5. Because Oni, just like a lot of other killers, have like mentioned that entire instant on aspect to it. And I feel like for Oni it especially sucks. Playing against this killer is so stressful. You know what I mean? Also can encourage camping. A lot of camping only, so just wait with their power and store for somebody, you know, to come for the hook and then just insta down you or something. And like mentioned, playing against Oni it's a super stressful experience. I feel like playing against Billy or Bubba also has a little bit of stress to it because, you know, oh my god, if you get hit now you get insta down, you know. But just doesn't have that same feeling as Oni from the loud noise of Oni for the entire game to the entire screeching, which is super annoying. I mentioned just the stupid instant down, which is often also just not necessarily difficult to dodge, but like, I don't know, Oni's just not fun whatsoever. It's just super boring to play against this killer. It's annoying to play against this killer from a gameplay standpoint and even a sonical standpoint, you know, like Kaneki, we get to that later as example. When you want to play Kaneki yourself and you're in the lobby and he's constantly screeching as example, like, you know, Oni sucks. Oni sucks playing against. I don't know. For me personally, I've never enjoyed a game against Oni. He definitely belongs to my low 5. But Deathslinger, on the other hand, is definitely up here in the enjoyable tier. Yeah, Deathslinger is basically what Huntress is, but in fairer, where it's similarly like the entire, you know, one is to aim, the other is to dodge, which makes for a very simple but in my opinion fun experience for both sides. Just as like mentioned, more balanced, because he obviously has to reload and everything. He doesn't have like several projectiles, whatever. He can camp as well, and usually I feel like playing against Deathslinger is a fun time. Yeah, I feel like very rarely have I had games against a Deathslinger where I'm like, oh, this was bad. Sure, there are some hits where like, really, that hit me there, but like not to the degree of Huntress. Usually an enjoyable killer to go against. Similarly to Executioner, with the difference that for me, Executioner belongs in my top 5, even above Demogorgon. Now I personally don't like playing that often as him because I'm just not good at him. I definitely need to play him honestly more. But playing against Executioner is something that happens very rarely, but damn is it fun, because I believe Executioner is the most balanced aspect of this entire projectile thing. 100%. In my opinion, Executioner is the most balanced, like, one has to aim, the other has to dodge, into, and Dead by Daylight. Yeah? Obviously you can go for rewards, which the others can as example, but like here it's often, you can just stand still, and nothing happens. One step to the left, one step to the right. Everything about the mental aspect here is super dope. And I also love the theme. The theme is dope. The killer looks dope. Even the aspect with the barbed wire and with the getting into the cage and whatnot is cool. I love playing Executioner. I love playing against Executioner. Okay, Executioner usually super fun time. It's the chases against an Executioner are super fun. Even if you get down, then this is the thing that I don't often say to Huntress, but like when I play against an Executioner and they land like super good hit, I'm like, damn dude, well done, you know, and I love that. I love that aspect of playing Survivor where I can say, hey, well played killer, super cool, because you know, I know the side, I know the other side where I'm like, oh, that is a very difficult hit to make there, and then they really did that, cool stuff. Executioner, super dope, super enjoyable to play against, easily my top 5. And I've already hinted at this killer earlier when we talked about the nurse. Blight is 100% also in my low 5. Blight, similarly to Nurse, is just a killer that from a design standpoint is not healthy for the game. So many killers had to suffer from nerfs on perks because Blight was just too strong, even stronger because he was able to use them. Yeah, Blight, similarly to Nurse, is in a state that genuinely hurts the quality of Dead by Daylight, because he's obviously like levels above so many other killers, where nerfing general perks that he and other killers can use makes them suffer. Well, it just hurts him a little bit, and you can still be super crazy. The thing is, similarly to Nurse, you can have some fun games against the Blight where it's like cool chases and whatnot. Sometimes you have some 2-minute long chase against the Blight where you're like, oh my god, this is insane, you know, the endorphins going crazy on the Survivor side. But like so many times you're also like, you get hit from 50 meters away where you just think, dude, what the fuck is that, you know? Blight is not balanced 100%. If you play against a super good Blight, it's just not a fun experience, it's an unfair experience, similarly to Durs, and he 100% belongs to the low 5, okay? Usually end up playing Blight games because, like mentioned, you never know. Sometimes it's maybe not so experienced Blight, and it can be a fair game still here and there, because often the only way a Blight game can be fair for the Survivor side is when the Blight isn't that good. Like me, as example, when I play Blight, trust me, it's gonna be balanced, but most of the time, Blight, super awful experience, because if people are good on this killer, then it can truly show you just how unfair this design is. Yeah. Twins. I actually enjoy playing myself, but playing against twins is often a very frustrating experience, and even more frustrating in my opinion than Legion, because similarly to, like I mentioned, Wraith or Baba, this kind of hero, when I don't know about robots, this kind of killer attracts a certain kind of player, and the playstyle of this killer attracts a lot of slugging. Yeah, and it's just super boring. When you play against twins, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's often just laying on the ground or just, you know, spending time healing, or like, it's just usually not fun. And also bugs is still a thing, which in my opinion affects both sides, both the killer and the Survivor side. Bugs are just never fun, you know, and yeah, I don't know. Twins, sadly, not fun to play against. I don't know, I like Victor as an idea, and there are some fun moments when playing against twins, don't get me wrong, but like, most of the time, unfortunately not. Sadly not. Trickster, on the other hand, goes into the sometimes fun, sometimes awful, because Trickster, similarly to where did I put him? Right, exact. Because similarly to some other killers, he can camp basement pretty well when he has like main event or something like that. Sometimes it's also like an enjoyable experience because his kit isn't that easy actually, or like it's technically very simple, but like actually making it work well isn't always that simple, with tight corners around walls and whatnot, you know what I mean? So like you can't have good chases against this killer, but sometimes you also like trying to unhook someone, he gets main event, and You know what I mean? It's not as unfair as some killers here, like as annoying as like other killers here. He's definitely not that strong. Definitely not. I've seen some people always consider like Trickster like super strong or whatever. I'm like, I think that's skill issue right there. Not usually. But yeah, you can have games against Trickster that can spiral out of control pretty quickly and snowball pretty quickly. Sometimes not at all, and you just escape as for people, you know. Hence he goes here. And this is super funny, because I know that a lot of players that play these killers tend to tunnel a lot, and you know, but personally, I have to put Nemesis into my top 5. I love playing Nemesis and I love playing against Nemesis. Something about his kills, in my opinion, just so perfectly designed. Is the hitbox of the tentacles sometimes a bit odd and weird? Yeah, especially when you play this killer, you're like thinking this should have been a hit and whatnot, you know. Same with the survivors that we're like, wow, that was a hit in a way. But most of the time I think it's super balanced. The zombies are a super fun mechanic, in my opinion, while Survivor just kind of always has a little bit of tension, but like a cool way of tension. The theme is dope, the vaccine stuff is fine and absolutely okay, you know. I should enjoy myself a lot against this killer. Funnily enough though, I remember having played with somebody in the past who would always DC against Nemesis because they were just super afraid of zombies, you know, so afraid they literally just couldn't play against Nemesis, so they always succeed. Which is, yeah, both valid but obviously also a little bit crazy, you know. But hey, we are completing the lower 5. Remember the killer tier list? They're at the bottom here and they're at the bottom here as well. Cenobite. I have absolutely no issue with this killer, with them losing the license and this killer no longer being available in store, because fuck it, this killer. This killer is unbelievably annoying to play against. It's playing against Nurse or Blight more difficult and strongest most of the time? Yes, because the skills are by far the strongest in the game. But playing against Cenobite is a pain in the ass. It truly brings the pain, but not a good suffering. No. The entire theme with the boss is often super annoying. Once the chain on starts, it's super frustrating, and this is just a peak killer off. If you play Zolo, good luck. Playing against this killer Zolo is such an infuriating type most of the time. I don't know. I hate playing this killer. I hate playing against this killer. Meh. Honestly, this I might as well DC applies definitely a little bit more to those heroes. I think that you should maybe be here. But like when it comes to the game itself, man, once that chain on starts, it's just so fucking awful. It's just so boring. Like playing against Legion is more boring. Like against these killers. Technically, you could put Legion here because playing against this killer is the most boring experience. But like, these are definitely my low 5. The ones I have the least fun playing against for various reasons. Whether it's like the balancing or like maybe even the audio stuff, or just sometimes the experience as a solo queue player. Yeah, solo queue Cenobite experience as a survivor. The worst of the worst. Next up we have the artist, and I would put the artist right below the Deathslinger. Also enjoyable to go against in my opinion. The crow mechanic, once again, very different in comparison to a lot of other killers, which already just adds a bit of uniqueness, a bit of excitement to the design and gameplay, and in my opinion also fair. Yeah, once again, fairness and balancing is in my opinion a very huge part of enjoyment on the survivor side. Obviously playing the strong kills on killer side, it's cool, sure, but like when you play survivor you obviously want to have games that like back and forth. You just don't want to have stomps. Stomps are just boring on both sides, and I think artists usually has some very fair and balanced games. Onryo is another candidate for the sometimes fun, sometimes awful tier. Technically a very weak killer. It's like M1 killer, you know, like usually you can have a good time against this killer when you're good in looping, but sometimes it's a game that can snowball very quickly because we know how some of these builds can look like. I've seen a lot of Onryo players slugging because it just encouraged a bit with the builds. You can, like mentioned, also get instantly killed, similar to Myers. Obviously not to the same degree in easiness, but it can happen too, and it's also just a little bit awful. So yeah, sometimes you can have good games against this killer, sometimes not. Most of the time though, I think actually playing against Onryo is kind of cool, because I like the design, or like the visuals, the entire aspect of the TVs is kind of fun. I like it. And this another case like Doctor or a Clown. For a lot of players, this killer is an instant DC reason, especially console players. Yeah, I've heard a lot about not being able to see anything on the screen. But for me personally, Dredge is, in my opinion, my third most favorite killer to play against. Dredge is super cool. I love playing as Dredge, even though I'm not that good as a Dredge, because the kit is just super unique and fun. But playing against it is just so dope. Okay, playing against Dredge is, in my opinion, super enjoyable. The entire thing with the Remnant is a cool way to play loops. It makes it always for a fun way. Just the aspect of like having to worry about, oh my god, could it like come out of that locker at any moment or not, you know? And adds a bit of cool tension, you know, fun tension, not the same tension like with Odie, where it's like, you know, you can like get one shot at any moment. No, you're just like, oh my god, can he appear now or not? And playing against Dredge in Nightfall is also, in my opinion, super cool. I love it, honestly. I think it's like one of the coolest moments you can have as a survivor, playing against Dredge in Nightfall, because it's like a genuine, like the closest you can get to a horror movie in this game. You know what I mean? Super dope. Super designs, in my opinion, one of the best killers they've ever released to this day, both in terms of balancing and just fun, even though he's definitely map dependent, so when you play as Dredge you can have some bad games here and there, but man, is it fun to play against Dredge. Wesker is next, and I would put Wesker at the top of this tier. Very simple killer in terms of like design, like M1 killer with some dashes. The entire aspect with the having to heal from the Ouroboros infection is something you have similarly with, like, you know, like technically it's super similar to Nemesis, or even like Legion, where you're like, even though Legion you can like do easier, you know, like you just can do it where you stand here, you have to actually find something for it. But I don't know, playing against Wesker is usually a fun time, you know, fun chases, not too strong, but it's fairly challenged, so it's once again like a super good balancing aspect where it's like you can have some very good games against this killer for both sides. Good stuff. Similarly to Knight also, in my opinion, I put him right below Artist. Simple design. The Knights are a cool, you know, mechanic that's like once again super unique, which makes it very enjoyable and like something different in comparison to a lot of other killers. And playing as Knight also enjoyable, even though you have some bugs in there that are a bit annoying. Like whenever I play against Knight, which doesn't happen often, it's a good time, in my opinion. And it's obviously, to this day, Skull Merchant has not been able to lose her status. Okay, to this day, Skull Merchant has not been able to lose her status of PLTC against her, because it just kept going. You know, that Skull Merchant from back then that can hold games hostage for like an hour doesn't even exist anymore, but people still hate going against her. And I'll be honest, I still don't like playing against her, not as much as those people here, but I would still put her like here. Okay, I don't know, it's just boring. Playing against Skull Merchants is boring. Skull Merchant, in my opinion, still similar to like Baba or Wraith, attracts a lot of annoying toxic players. And also, that's also the thing, even though I don't DC against this killer, a lot of teammates do. And that obviously then affects you, because then it's a 3v1, and that sucks. Okay, to this day, many people DC against this killer, and it's just awful for the entire team, including yourself. You know? Playing against in like loops or something is like okay, but most of the time, man, it's just boring, it's just not fun. There's just cooler killers to go against. What can you say? Singularity, a killer that I thought about first putting here, because there are some games against Singularities that, like when the slugging place that was very popular against this killer was super awful to play against Singularity, but most of the time I think Singularity is honestly enjoyable to play against. But the question is, where did I put Singularity? I think I put Singularity. Where did I put Singularity? God, I didn't include it there. Oh, never mind. Okay, I do have it actually still written down here in the sometimes tier, but I think I put it here nonetheless. I think I put it similarly to Artists. It's like a very different kind of gameplay design. I mean, not that different. Like mentioned, it's a bit similar to like Xeno, we get to the moment, or like Wesker or Nemesis, where you have to do a little bit of side objectives here and there. But like the way you chase against, like loop against the Singularity is super different and super cool. The theme is dope. Yeah, fun time most of the time. Again, there was a time where it was super awful, but like nowadays, I think it's super cool. Similarly to Xeno, I would put Zeno right above Huntress, right below Deathslinger. Another killer that like is in chase, kind of weird sometimes. It's like Nemesis, where you sometimes get hit by a tail where you feel like it shouldn't hit you, or you know. But like most of the time, it's a rather simple killer with a little bit of the mini game with the turrets going on. And besides that, you're gonna have some very simple, straightforward loops that are fun and balanced to play. Yeah, once again, Xenomorph, balanced killer with a balanced experience for both sides. Well done. Chucky. For a long time, especially before the nerfs, was a lot of survivors down here because Chucky was really strong. Though in my opinion, far from as like unfair as nerfs or Blight. I would put Chucky into the enjoyable to play against tier. Playing against Chucky is super fun. There have been some annoying players on it too, similar like a Wraith, but like not to the same extent. But like the voice lines, the loops against this killer are usually super different and fun, and similarly to like playing as Chucky, where he's so small, which makes for a cool different experience. It's the same for playing against him. It's just something different, just something fresh, and I really enjoy that. And we have arrived at my number 1. Was my number 2 for favorite killers to play, but the Unknown is my favorite killer to play against. We've like mentioned talked about the entire aspect of, actually I was lying earlier, we talked about the entire aspect of one side has to aim, the other is dodge for Huntress, Deathslinger and Executioner. For the Unknown it's the best. By far, it's so fun to play as Unknown, where you have to like do the aim thing with the power, but like also dodging it, because it's such a different projectile that is like so fresh and just has such a weird way of hitting. Where sometimes when it hits you, you're like what, or like it's another case of me being able to like be appreciative and saying, oh, wow, that was a dope shot, dude, super cool. I don't know, everything about this killer is just fun, in my opinion, to go against. It's just a super cool experience playing as and against this killer. 10/10 notes. To this day, in my opinion, the best original chapter they've ever done, alongside Dredge. Incredible. Lich is a bit similar to like Chucky and Knight, where it's like enjoyable most of the time. The minigame with the chest is usually super cool. Don't hate playing against this killer, usually a fun time. Yeah. Super cool. I don't like playing Lich that much because it's a bit difficult, actually, a bit stressful here and there, keeping up with all the abilities, but like playing against him, super dope. Same for the Dark Lord. Yeah, I love playing Dark Lord, also enjoy playing against the Dark Lord. Put him... Again, these killers here also just have like this entire aspect of voice lines. Voice lines as and against them is super cool. In my opinion, it just adds a lot. It adds a lot to it, and honestly, alone for that factor, I think I actually have to put them here. Not that high. I think playing against these killers is still more fun, but like the voice lines add so much depth. It just always makes things a whole lot more enjoyable. And the same can be said for Houndmaster, who I would put right next to here. Houndmaster on release was obviously super buggy to play as, but I feel like to this day Houndmaster is a super fun kill to play against, because similarly to Chucky or you know, on a lot of other killers, it's something fresh, it's something different. Playing against the Houndmaster, it's a very cool and different game. Houndmaster games are just different to like the M1 games, where like mentioned, playing against the Dark, playing against the Mars, playing against the Legion is often like just super boring. Yeah, both playing as and against them. Playing against Houndmaster is usually always a super exciting time. And last but not least, yeah, we obviously didn't have Kaneki out yet when I did the other tier list. Nowadays, we definitely put him into enjoyable to play, also to play against him. Now on release, it was definitely a little bit obnoxious, and there were cases where it felt super unfair, where you're like, what am I supposed to do here? He's way too much mobility. But nowadays I think it's definitely a little bit more balanced, and I would put him easily here into the sometimes awful tier. You can have good chases against this killer 100%. I have had games against this killer where I can loop him for a while, but sometimes there are moments where you're like caught off guard, and then suddenly you have a pallet somewhere near you, but like he's too fast. He gets like right on top of you and game over. Yeah, that can sometimes suck, but honestly, usually Kaneki is a very fun time, and I put him right into the middle. And here we are. Yeah, like mentioned at the beginning, with like nothing up here and everything was down here, we were like thinking, well, you just hate playing against everything though. But as you can see, I feel like personally as time went on, they were able to release much better, much healthier killers. They were just much more fun to play against as a survivor. As you could see, a lot of them are a bit late or like a bit later added into the game. I believe nowadays when looking at the roster, there are, like mentioned, still some issues, like personal issues, like playing against killers that can insta-down you. That's just a personal thing. Like some people don't mind it. I just personally find it super annoying. Some people won't have an issue playing against a Plague or a Cenobite or an Oni. Others will agree with me, especially in solo queue. Like mentioned, Cenobite is annoying. Nurse and Blight, like mentioned, are challenging, obviously, but often to a degree where it's just not fair, where they're just too strong, which sucks. And obviously here, like mentioned, you have my own little favorites to play against, my top 5 here, which are usually always super cool, and then the ones that I also have a fun time against. These, like mentioned, sometimes cool, sometimes not. And then here it's how many? 13, where I'm like, meh. Yeah, which I think is it's around 1/3 of killers where I like don't enjoy going against whatsoever. Then a few where I'm like, here and there, and then around half to another third where I enjoy playing against. And I think when you look at such a huge roster across such a long period of time of releasing killers, I think that's a very, very solid, yeah, a very solid track record. Yeah, this could definitely be looking worse, could definitely be looking better still too, but all in all, I think the killer roster as a survivor POV, or from the survivor POV, has a lot of fun games to offer. Sometimes not, but that's just how it is with multiplayer games with such wide rosters. Anyways, this shall be it with my Dead by Daylight tier list video. Which killer is the most fun to play against as survivor? Like the video if you enjoyed it, leave your thoughts and your tier list down below as well. Who are your favorite killers to go against, your least favorite to go against, and everything in the middle. Tell me about it down below in the comments. And as always, if you enjoy what I'm doing, if you want to support me, then gladly leave a sub as well. It would help me a lot. Like mentioned, look forward to more Dead by Daylight content, more videos, more live streams, probably a few more tier lists in there. And a lot of other ideas that we can still do. Obviously the FNAF chip that's coming out in the summer. It's going to be super exciting. And I will see you back soon for that at the gaming lodge.